call this meeting, the special meeting of the Board of Trustees, 10-ish. Welcome everyone to this. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to get a read of the room, see who's here. So, all those who live in Miami Township, outside the village of Yellow Springs, please raise their hand. Okay, I'm assuming the other not raising hands either live in the village or they're just passing through from Illinois, wherever you're going. Thank you.
How about work here? Is that an option?
Where?
Work here. You said live, right?
Work here. She said, how about those who work here?
Work in the township or in the village? Which? Well, if you work in the township, raise your hand. If you work in the village, don't.
Why is that?
The township is the village, right?
The township is in the
Yeah,
village.
so that's.
Not for this meeting, it's not.
Why is it not?
Why?
When they're being
I
asked.
don't know this one.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Now, the reason for this meeting is for one purpose, and that was stated on the agenda. It's for public financing, and in order to accomplish that, we will be considering Resolution 2025-12 after this morning. That's all we're going to discuss today.
Although the draft started out saying 10,
It's now 12.
I
I just corrected that. I'm going to read the preface to it to get an idea of where we're going with this resolution. The preface reads, whereas Board of Trustees of Miami Township has committed previously funds by resolution.
Which resolution?
I don't know.
It
Look it
didn't
up.
happen.
Look it up.
Yeah.
I
In the
did,
amount of
it wasn't
100
there.
Yeah, right. In the amount of $113,000 in partnership with the
I'm sorry.
Southern Land Trust.
I'm sorry.
do that.
Towards the acquisition of conservation easement on all or part of the township parcels referred to as the Welch Farm. That's what this resolution is going to do. It's going to certify that we will honor our commitment to that work. Now,
What commitment?
I would now like to give a brief chronology of the township's partnership with the Tecumseh Land Trust. All of those who were here 27 years ago, remember vividly that Miami Township, and I was the representative for the township, were in partnership with the Tecumseh Land Trust to acquire conservation easements on approximately 700 plus acres of land outside the village, in the township, commonly known as Whitehall Farm. It was the old Rankin property. This was about 38 to 40, I don't remember, different parcels that were being sold individually, and they were all set up to be parcels of size that were meant to develop into housing. This was not for farming parcels, these were all housing parcels. As you might recall, and I think there's a little book about it, and I know there's a DVD around it, but it was successful at the time. The property was acquired by private owners, and there were certain conservation easements that were sold by the property owners to the land trust in attempt to keep it the way it is today, and that's the way it's been. Since then, we have partnered with the land trust multiple times. I don't have the number.
$480,000.
I didn't ask for the amount.
I just don't have that.
Thank you.
Maybe a dozen times or so, I'm not sure, but apparently to the tune of $488,000.
That was reported by Kristen McGraw when she visited us a few months ago. That's why it's fresh in my mind.
Please keep in mind, everybody who's here, every single one of you, that not one penny of that $488,000 was derived from property taxes in the township or from the only levy that we have, which is the operation for the fire department. Not one red cent. This was all money that was obtained by the township through what used to be estate tax.
So 488,000 you're saying came from state taxes?
Exactly.
I will check that.
I prefer not to be interrupted.
Okay.
The money that had this resolution, not one penny of it. Is it from property tax?
What, this
Or-
resolution? This current resolution? I'm sorry.
Not one penny is from property tax or from the fire levy operational fund. This is all money that was committed to us from the United States government, the Department of Treasury, as a COVID relief fund.
I'll
that we
show,
were-
I filed it last week.
Thank you.
I filed it on April 30th. I'll show you, I filed it. We gave the ARPA money to the fire fund at the advice of the US Treasury.
Well,
I suggest.
I guess we could
Finish,
just,
And
Okay.
then we'll go
Marilyn,
through
okay,
line by
this-
line
Okay.
and ask
Okay.
these questions.
But when he's trying to make the people believe that the ARPA money was given to Tecumseh Land Trust, it wasn't even legal.
This is the beginning of a discussion. He's making
Okay.
his point,
But,
and then we can go through each line.
for a little clarification,
This is dysfunctional.
the ARPA money was committed to Miami Township. The first thing we did with it by resolution was to commit it to Marilyn's organization to give her $10,000.
no,
so
the
she
first
could-
thing you did in March 2022 is, I have it right here.
Was to commit
This, March
to the Tecumseh
2022,
Land Trust
Don Hollister
for the
and
purpose
and
of-
Don Hollister and Chris
this is
Mucher
gonna be
in
a-
March
this is gonna be a-
2022. If anybody wants a copy, I'll send it
No,
to
won't
you.
believe
In
it.
March 2022, they put us in a special category for ARPA called revenue loss, and it says for essential personnel payroll and bankroll. And it stayed there for 2 years until Kristen McGraw came in and asked for it. And they forgot they did that. They did it when I was out of town at the birth of my granddaughter and didn't tell me. And I was mad. Okay, I don't know, see, I don't like interrupting you, but when you tell absolute falsehoods, I don't know how to let the people keep thinking that it's true.
Absolute truth. The money was committed to the land trust for the purpose of the Welch Farm, and only for the purpose of the Welch Farm. If the Welch Farm sale did not produce any conservation easements, that money would revert to the general fund. The reason that it was committed by Maryland to the fire fund
No,
was
by
that
Chris, I was out of
originally,
town. Okay, I'm sorry,
originally,
Chris.
the ARPA money was given to the township with certain requirements for personnel and this, that, and the thing, essential services. At some point after that, the Treasury changed its mind and said that political subdivisions who had income of less than $10 million a year were enabled to use that fund for any purpose they
That's
felt.
not true. I'll let you read it in here. It's the exact opposite.
is not the
Originally, it says you can do this, 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 this. This is a little harder, this is easy. And then the interim rule, 2 years in, they had the interim rule, and they said, listen, guys, it's a lot of red tape. It's not true.
Please stop interrupting. A lot of
Ron, so
us
what do you
took-
want me
a
to
lot
do
of
when
us
he
have
tells
taken
you he
our-
had the right to
We
do
have
things?
taken our time to come here to listen to both sides. We're not hearing it.
Okay.
Well, Marilyn, we can really understand your frustration, but in order to get through it, let's let Chris complete his section,
Okay.
and then we can go through
Okay.
your disagreements line by line.
So for a year or so, those funds were then available to be used for any purpose that the township felt necessary. As time got closer, April of this year, to where we had to actually fish or cut bait, completely decide where this money was going, we started to get a little cold feet because the Treasury started kind of adding little requirements. Well, are these going to be for essential services, this, that, and the other thing? And so Marilyn wisely suggested that instead of taking that risk of that money being withdrawn, taking that risk of the money being withdrawn from us, we will then commit it to the fire fund, calling it for personnel services reimbursement, and then afterwards, we would recoup that money back to the general fund by the method that's going to be done in this resolution. That's where we are. Now, very briefly, I'd like to explain to anybody who may not know, but I have a feeling everybody knows, why we have been down this road with the land trust for 27 years. The short story, hopefully, is that township zoning is only allowed to exist by state law if it is in reflecting a comprehensive land use plan. Up until 12 years ago, our zoning was, 13, our zoning was connected to the county comprehensive land use plan. 12 or 13 years ago, our zoning commission put together a comprehensive land use plan. Now, keep in mind, a comprehensive land use plan is not a plan of the Board of Trustees. We had absolutely nothing to do with it. We did not institute it, we did not work on it, we did not approve it. It was totally the zoning department.
Do we not have to have a final vote?
No, we did not vote on it, Marilyn.
I'm just clarifying.
It was developed, the zoning commission developed it with some consultants. I mean, there was a lot of little things that had to be done. Solely with the input of residents of the unincorporated area of Miami Township. There was absolutely no village participation in the process whatsoever. That's the comprehensive plan that exists today. And it is the requirement of the zoning commission that they make zoning code that reflects the goals of the comprehensive plan. Now comes the Board of Trustees. If the zoning commission were to bring zoning code recommendations to us that were in conflict with our comprehensive plan, for example, we'll allow X, Y, and Z to put a Walmart out on High Road and then build a 20-story condominium on Houston Road. And so they're going to rezone those properties to have those things done. Before they do that, they have to come to this board, and it has to be approved by this board. Now, this board is also required to follow the comprehensive land use plan. So if something comes before this board that we don't feel reflects verbiage in the land use plan, it's our responsibility to deny that request. I'm going to read just a little bit of the plan, just so you get a feel for where our responsibility is. Number one, second page, plan goals. Recognize the importance of viable agriculture and its positive contributions to Miami Township. 2, promote sustainable land use practices which offer the agricultural community protection from unnecessary encroachment. Chapter 3, Township Vision. Township Vision. This is the vision of the Board of Trustees, hopefully reflecting the will of the residents of the unincorporated area in the township, how they'd like to see the township be in the future, the vision. I'm going to read. The thrust of this plan is to retain Miami Township's historical land use patterns of agriculture. With this plan, the township is building the foundation for balanced and managed use of the land that will retain the character of Miami Township and preserve its physical beauty and natural resources. The success of the plan depends upon the support and the cooperation of the surrounding communities, support of the township's residents, and future critical decisions that would be made by the township. That's us. The unincorporated area of Miami Township outside of the villages and protected natural areas is predominantly farmland. This plan calls for minimal new development in the farmland areas of the township and supports logical and planned growth of the villages. Next section is farmland. It reads, Miami Township has historically been an agricultural and agrarian community. Farming has been the dominant land use in the township for decades, still occupies approximately 12,500 acres. This represents about 76% of the total land area within Miami Township. The other 26 area is in Glen Helen and nature reserves and all of those. As a predominant industry, farming plays a vital role in Miami Township's economy. Within Miami Township, there is a desire to preserve and protect the land necessary for continuation of farming. A strategy for regulating development in our rural areas is vital to the future of farming. We must do all we can to retain the historically important industry, which contributes so strongly to our sense of well-being. We must also focus our attention on the needs of a healthy farming community and the issues and concerns that the development of our rural township brings to the viable farmland within Miami Township. Farming also results in the continuation of the township's rural feel. Visual appearance of open space that results from the land being farmed can provide some essence of community well-being, identity and separation, aesthetic quality, resource protection. The entire community can capitalize on the open space qualities of this farmland resource. Farmland goals. These are goals that are set out that are to be followed by the zoning commission and by the board of trustees. Protect current farmland, which is a limited natural resource with special attention placed on preserving prime soils, of which 99% of the soils in my township are prime soils. Preserve the open space character of the township for future generations. Future, not present. Promote responsible land use practices to help preserve active agriculture in the township. Farmland strategies. Maintain documentation that identifies where in the township current farmland is most vulnerable to development pressures. Obviously, the Council Land Trust has done this admirably over the last 27 years. Establish zoning resolutions which will effectively promote current farmland from premature and unnecessary development. It's pretty clear. Farmland land use policies as developed by the Zoning Commission and put forth through the Board of Trustees. Encourage land uses that involve active farming operations above all other uses in areas where Class 1 and Class 2 soils exist, which is 96%, according to Greene County Soil Surveys. Discourage the development of non-farm residential estates on prime farmland. Encourage landowners to place farmland into conservation easements. And establish a prime farmland district with incentives and stronger regulations. Respect the boundaries of land placed in land trust and conservation easements with close scrutiny for any proposed development that would border these protected areas. Where current farmland is being considered for development, the least productive land area would be considered first. Encourage proposed residential development to locate on land where wooded areas, topography, and natural areas can serve as natural buffers to adjacent farming operations. Discourage any development that would conflict with the productivity of current farming operations. Proposed developments will be evaluated on the evidence for their necessity, availability, public sewer, water, etc. I think I've got. Discourage the extension of public water and wastewater collection into prime farmland areas. Conservation. Protecting land within Miami Township with attention to places containing naturally or state significant ecological qualities, important wildlife habitat, high water quality, cultural and economic significance, scenic views, and working farms within conservation easements are a priority. A priority. Conservation goals. Protect existing farmland and environmentally sensitive land by encouraging landowners to apply for conservation easements. I think that's where the land trust comes in.
Yeah.
Conservation strategies. Encourage owners of prime farmland and environmentally sensitive land to enroll in permanent farming or conservation easements with organizations such as the Tecumseh Land Trust. Little Miami Incorporated and USDA Forest Legacy Program. Miami Township trustees encourage the Miami Township trustees to continue supporting these easement programs with revenues received. That seems relatively clear. Conservation land use policies. Conservation land use classification is also to be characterized by farmland that has been placed in a conservation easement. Sorry about my long-windedness. Okay, we'll move along. We have some ground rules. We have some ground rules for public meetings such as this, especially. We'll get to you after the ground rules.
That's what a filibuster looks like.
I mean,
We'll get, the ground rules are these. We've adopted ground rules at the beginning of the year for public comments, concerns, whatever, during a meeting, a public meeting, a normal public meeting. This is not a normal public meeting. This is a special meeting. This meeting contains only one item on the agenda, and that is to consider the adoption of this resolution that I put before us. And those, oh, and anyone who's interested in a question or comment need to raise their hand. I will signify them and ask them what the question or comment refers to. If it doesn't refer to this resolution, I will ask that person to save that comment for our next public meeting, or they could be a request to be put on the agenda for our public meeting and have whatever discussions they'd like to have. Now,
I'm sorry, did you hear that? If they raise their hand, they have to wait for the next public meeting?
if they raise their
Oh, sorry.
hand,
Okay.
I acknowledge them. If the question or comment
Oh, yeah, okay.
that they say that they're considering giving to the board does not have to do with the exact resolution in front of us, which is the only thing we're dealing with, I'm going to ask them to save those questions or comments until the next regularly scheduled public meeting, that's the 5th, 7th of May, with a little advance notice. If you just let us know that you'd like to be on the agenda for that discussion or for that comment, please just let us know and we'll be happy to do that. But we're not doing it today. We're doing this, we have one item of business in front of us. That is the resolution before us.
And
So are you asking for, is it open up, or do you want comments from trustees, or have?
Trustees need not raise their hands, they are members of the board, but if there's any member of the public who'd like to make a question or a comment specific to this resolution, this financial resolution, there's no policy being discussed here. Policy has already been placed. All this is the mechanics of being able to keep our fiscal commitment to comes to land trust, which we have made previously.
It-
That
it
is
would-
not up for debate. That is done. This resolution is only to fulfill the fiscal ability of us to fulfill our commitment, honor our commitment to the land trust.
It would help me at some point here if we go through line by line
That's next on my list.
to understand which, this fund being shifted to that fund, functionally,
That's
And,
fine.
and with the first thing we went through was the first paragraph, so if we could start there, that'd be awesome.
All right, we've done the first
No,
paragraph.
we haven't, because you told me to wait until you were done to say my piece.
Oh. The floor is yours.
Okay. The claim was made that the first thing we did with the ARPA funds are the Biden stimulus funds. We got $130,000 and we've been sitting on them for 4 years, partially because they didn't need to be given, but it's kind of a little cold word, unspoken. I came in as a candidate and the Biden people were like, improve your community with this. Here's all the lists of things you can do. You can support business, you can do this, you can do that, you can build something. And if there were stars in their eyes. And I came as a candidate saying, hey, we got $130,000. Let's just make sure there's a public process for this. Chris was very adamant at the time, and I've come to agree with him. He said, we got to take care of our own. We have a fire department to run. It's our number one responsibility. And I thought, being a young upstart, or old upstart, I thought, well, there's got to be that rigid. Maybe there are some things. Even Michelle and I were on committees where we thought about doing studies for preservation of wetlands, and the sustainability group on together. And I still had dreams. And then I began to do my job and become fiscally involved. And we wouldn't talk about what we were going to do with that money. And then I went away. I told them I had to go to my granddaughter's birth, and in March. And at that meeting, Chris brought this thing, and this was the U.S. government saying, you know, these things are pretty complicated, and to give away money, we're asking, we'd have to vet the nonprofit, we have to do this, we have to certify that and do that. I'll tell you what, a lot of you guys are just small town people. If your budget's under 10 million, we made this interim final rule. We're gonna make this thing called revenue loss. If you claim revenue loss, we'll cut it down. You can't do anything fancy. Now, it's just the opposite of what Chris said. What they said is you can't do anything fancy. You could only do these things. Road and building maintenance, health services, government administration, police and fire, maintenance of building infrastructure, or modernizing your cybersecurity as examples.
What's the last one?
Modernization of cybersecurity, including hardware, software, and protection of critical infrastructure.
Well, then we're looking at different documents, because the one I was doing has a last item as other.
Well, the point is, we wouldn't have said, we have a revenue loss. We were able to say, we have a revenue loss. And what the thing is, they say, we're going to simplify it so much you don't even have to prove your revenue loss. If you're that little, we don't have to. So we said, okay, we can put it in the fire fund, and we needed it. And I came back, and they didn't tell me that they passed this. They didn't tell me. Even though I campaigned on it, we'd had several discussions. I have the meeting on tape, on video, and yes, I won't get into that part. He said, we have this, let's go ahead and pass this. So I was going through doing something else one day, and I found it, and I was like, those rats, they did this while I was gone. And I was so furious, but I didn't say anything, because there's only so much fighting you could do, you know? So I sat, and what I came to realize as I worked with it is, Chris is right. I have no business. We got a fire station to run. It's 70% of our thing. Everything, you know, let it go. That's a good place to put it. And it stayed there for 2 years, because we didn't have to do the paper. We didn't have to finish it until this year. And then at one point I said, that's a good thing, Chris, that we put it in that fund. And he said, yeah, but I'm starting to get other ideas. And I'm like, uh-oh. And what I found out was he was beginning to get interested in this land thing. And I said, well, we're gonna have to discuss this, because we've had a long history. And then one day, Krista McGraw came in, the former director of TLT, and they had known ahead of time, and maybe Don, you knew too that she was coming. I didn't know she was coming, maybe you knew too. And she asked for money, and he said, I think Maryland wants to give away this, it didn't end up happening. We have this $113,000, I'd like to do it. And I said, whoa, wait. What happened? And I said, we can't make this decision this quickly, it's 15 minutes, we can't, and they made it. But what they had forgotten is they'd already done this. They forgot. They forgot that they did this.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, we're screwed now. No, excuse me that language. And I started thinking, oh, what are we going to do? And I thought, well, they already voted for it. And maybe, but the thing is, we weren't really able to finesse that. So I was going to take part in putting it in the general fund and saying, we're going to revenue loss in the general fund, and then at some point, hey, we got an extra $100,000. It's kind of shady. It's probably legally shady that we were going to do that, but I was going to participate. We started getting emails from the Treasury said, we're sending this email out to all the townships who have not obligated their funds yet. We're a little worried about you. It's been 4 years and you haven't told us what we're going to do with it yet. Come to this webinar, come to this webinar, come to this webinar. That came to all of us. I went to the webinar. Based on that, I made an appointment with 2 years as treasuries. I said, this is what we're thinking to do. We're in the revenue loss category. We're going to go ahead and put it in our general fund. And the guy said, red flag, red flag. And I said, what? I can't do that? He said, I can't tell you what to do with it. But yeah, we're going to put it in the general fund. And he said, red flag, red flag. Can I do that? I can't tell you what to do with it. And that's when I figured out he was telling me, we know why people put things in the general fund. And I began to intuit that we might get an audit from that. And I asked myself, was that totally above board? And I went to my trustees and said, I said, and Don said, so what do we have to do to make this work? And I said, I'm not going to participate. And Chris said, go ahead and put it in the fire fund. And I said, yes. We're in safe harbor. In fact, one of the things that the government, specifically when they talk about the revenue loss, they always mention first responders because that's the safest place to say. And so I thought it was settled. And in the back of my mind, I thought, what if this land deal goes through? Are they going to talk to Michelle? And at that time, Chris suggested, if it went through, and we both expressed doubt that it might not, I want you to know I had doubts whether you could pull this off, and I admit that. And so I wasn't really going to deal with it head on. And that's how my part I played in confusing you guys. And so he said we could just amend the appropriations in the general fund. Oh God, I hope we don't come to that. But I thought, no, hopefully that'll never happen because I don't want to do that. And I knew at that time, we should have been straight with you. And I don't know if you were ever told about the ARPA thing, or we couldn't expect you to watch our meetings and say that had been rescinded. Because we couldn't do it. We couldn't do it not only because it wasn't above board, but all the funds had to be obligated by December 24, and this deal wasn't going to happen before then, so it was an impossibility. And I could have talked to you then, but I honestly don't think the dynamics would have changed. We'd still feel differently. And he'd still want to take it out of the general fund. And so, so I went ahead and took all the steps to get us right. And then I heard that it's going through, and then that's how all this happened. And I want to address, so from the very first paragraph, it says, we have committed funds by resolution to 113,000. We committed ARPA funds. It wasn't a resolution, it was just a vote. We committed ARPA funds to the general fund by resolution, but admittedly for nefarious purposes. And I'm just being honest. And then we committed them to the fire fund, but our feet firmly on the ground in full compliance with the law. That was done by resolution. But there was never a time where we committed funds to come to land trust by resolution. So this first paragraph is false. And
Okay,
it,
so by motion, let's not, you know.
no, it wasn't by
Who
motion.
cares?
By motion, we gave them the ARPA fund.
Well,
By motion, we gave them the ARPA money.
how did we give you $10,000?
We, by the same thing. I was gonna use that, we're in YSDC, and they wanted money for a director, and I was in the same thing. I thought, because in here it says, when they gave it away in March 22, it says for essential personnel payroll and broadband services. The county used to, they were gonna charge us $10,000 to get broadband out into the county. They're gonna say, you guys, it's gonna cost millions, but why don't you chip in 10,000? And then they retracted that. They said, nah, don't worry about it. It costs millions. Why would we want your 10,000? So I thought, oh, there's 10,000 there. YSDC is asking for 10,000, maybe we can give that. That also wasn't proper. And I also had thought through the fact that this was here. So that, but then as it turned out, YSDC didn't want it because the village took that over. So that's what happened. So we committed that to ARPA by resolution, by motion. And that's why he didn't put resolution 2024 dash whatever. He just put resolution. You know? And so the very first paragraph, I have issue with. So that's the first line. We can go ahead now.
Okay. Before we do that, I'm going to make a motion to the board that we commit $113,000 of general fund money to partner with the Tecumseh Land Trust for the potential purchase of conservation easements on what's commonly known as the Welch Farm located in the outside of Montgomery Township. I've made the motion. Is there a second?
Public comments?
Is there a second?
I'm not prepared to make a second on that.
Okay, fine. We'll move along.
May I elaborate?
Was there a hand?
There are lots of hands over there.
He wants to elaborate.
Yep.
Trustee wants to elaborate. Let's hear it,
I
Don.
prefer that you didn't because
Okay.
you've taken off.
Maryland
What?
finished.
You're not going to
No, our
vote?
trustee's
You're
not
not going to
allowed.
vote?
What do you mean he's not gonna vote?
He said he wouldn't vote.
No,
You wouldn't-
we're all
you didn't-
commenting on paragraph one.
He said he wouldn't second the motion.
So he doesn't get to speak?
Oh, of course he gets to speak, but he said he wanted to elaborate on his decision.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
The hands, I guess I'm missing hands. Okay.
Yeah, I want to comment specifically on the process that how we're going to do this.
Mhm.
Don asked that we go line by line through all of these appropriations, moving money from here to here and here to here. I disagree with that approach because it's all moot if we can instead influence the decision to give or not give this money.
That's not on the table. That's not up for discussion
Wait, what are
today.
Uh,
you saying?
Don said he wanted to talk about each line of moving the monies from here to there, which would be boring and kind of not,
It's very important,
to both
Barbara.
of us.
It's very important, Barbara. It's very important.
for what each, a little about from here to here. to here to here.
Absolutely.
Some of it is not,
Absolutely.
some of it is not even legal.
Absolutely.
Some of it is not even legal. This hasn't been read by an attorney or an auditor. And our audits are atrocious. And I've been working, and I've been sitting down and making nice with auditors and saying, teach me, we're gonna do better, teach me, we're gonna do better. But I've alerted the county prosecutor and our prosecutor and the auditor and the person I'm working with, the state, and with the person, the regional divisions. I said, we're about to pass something that hasn't been vetted to change appropriation. It hasn't been vetted by an auditor or a lawyer. And we have big marks. We have 2 counts on our last audit that says that we didn't do our appropriations right. And I sat down with a regional auditor last week and she said, how's that going? And you guys got it? And I said, it's great. I think we're doing a lot better. Came home that day and they told me they're about to do a whole bunch of new appropriations. So this is really relevant. This has not been vetted.
I hope the room will keep in mind that at least in my 28 years on the Board of Trustees, we have never asked that a resolution for anything, financial or not, be approved by, I'm going to take that back, something like building the firehouse. We may have run that by them. But any resolution of having to do with appropriations or use of funds that we already have had certified by the county auditor that we can use for what purposes we feel necessary. Never has that had to go to a legal opinion. This is all Maryland's idea.
This is ARPA, our
to try
ARPA
and
funds were
just
vetted by a lawyer. Our ARPA funds were vetted by a lawyer.
Gray up this area, and I really
Oh, I'm gonna gray it up.
Well, you can gray it up all you want.
No, I'm saying, you're telling me I'm graying it up.
Okay. Moving along, I think that's enough of that conversation. Oh, was there another question?
This is, it's not exactly a question, but to the first paragraph here, about whether or not there was a resolution. I know that it's already been said that there was no resolution. There was an approved motion in October of 2024 to commit general fund money to the TLT. That, I don't know that that was rescinded, but, you know,
There was a resolution to,
there was not a resolution, there was a motion.
what day was that?
That was October 7th, and I'm not saying that to add any fuel to fire,
Okay.
I just have to report
Thank
things
you.
as they happen, and I'd like you all to know that before I
I'll
report.
have to check, see if I was in
I'm
there.
looking at the minutes.
Was Marilyn Moyer there?
Trustee Moyer moved to add the previously approved $113,000 conservation easement set aside August 5th, 2024, to a 2025 budget item. A brief discussion reviewed its original passage. Trustee Mutra seconded and the motion carried unanimously.
What?
Should I read it?
Yes.
Trustee Moyer, this is October 7th. Trustee Moyer moved to add the previously approved $113,000 conservation easement set aside, which had been previously approved in August 4th, to a 2025 budget item. A brief discussion reviewed its original passage, the ARPA funds designated to cover it, and the need to have said ARPA funds transferred and appropriated by December 31st, 2024. Trustee Mutra seconded and the motion carried unanimously. After that was when you all amended the 2022 resolution to move the money from the fire fund to the general fund. So those were two separate actions that the board took. I'm only saying that because that's how I'll report it. I don't mean to muddy
And we
anything.
did that when I was going along with
Right.
putting ARPA money into the general fund, so we could claim a revenue loss
Right.
and say that we were going to use it for our operations. And then we were going to find money for the Tecumseh Land Trust.
Mhm.
I fully admit I was going to go along with that. And it wasn't until I sat down with the U.S. Treasury
Right.
on a Zoom call, very humbly, and I thought, I found out at an OTA conference, an attorney,
Ohio Township Association.
that they do that. There's a little bit of shell game going on in public financing, so yeah. And I said, well, it's kind of a legal shell game. So, okay, they already voted for it. I want to make sure it's done right. Let me go to attorneys, and we went to attorneys for that. I want to make sure it's done right, and I did go along with that until I was gladfully intimidated out of it by the Treasury. And I was glad because I didn't really want to do it, and they were the people that told me you shouldn't do it.
Any other questions? Ann? Oh, there's one. Specific to the resolution, I assume?
Yes, why is this an emergency, and why was it so short notice, and why Tuesday at 10 o'clock when everybody's working and doing everything else? It seems uncomfortable to us as the community. Why is this an emergency, and why was it
It
called?
is not an emergency meeting, this is a special meeting. There's a big difference between the two.
Why was it so quickly put in place?
Every special meeting is done within 5 to 7 days.
At 10 o'clock on a Tuesday?
24 hours.
Anytime that the board's available, and the room is here, and any of the public can come in. The main reason was, the second half of this resolution deals with changing appropriations, to move money around so then we can begin to recoup the ARPA money that is, actually, it's not sitting anywhere yet, but it's obligated to the fire fund.
Recoup. See, right there, when you say we're gonna recoup ARPA money, you're breaking the law.
We're gonna recoup.
If we're gonna recoup ARPA,
We're gonna
if we're
recoup funds.
if we're
How's that?
recouping funds that we
Okay.
gave to the fire fund, that's against the law.
One of
No.
One of the points in this resolution refers to April
Okay.
30th.
Okay, well, you could explain that. I thought we wgo line by line.
I'm just saying
We wanted
that
to
a
get
part of
this-
this,
We wanted to get this
Let Tom
resolution
speak.
by
Let
April
Tom
30,
speak,
so we could,
please. Let Tom speak. Please.
well, he's saying the same thing. If we make this resolution or some version of it by pay period ending April 30th, that is before May 1st, some of this would kick in for May rather than if we waited, it would kick in for June. So there's a little bit of,
So we're
financial
trying to go
difference.
really fast so we can start getting the money real faster.
we can argue about how significant that amount of money is, but, and again, there's merit to me in going through line by line. But the overall purpose of trying to meet needs of one farmland sale situation, I support that. I also have fiscal responsibility, and I'm not settled on all the items in this resolution, but I support the general goal of the resolution of having money available for Tecumseh Land Trust conservation easement. That's what I wanted to say minutes ago.
have you brought, because I don't, you didn't give it to me, have you brought your method of
No, I haven't. I want to understand.
obligating this?
I don't fully understand these specifics. So that's,
Okay.
At some point.
Can we move along then?
Mhm.
All right.
Can we make, are we open for comments?
Pardon me?
Are we open for comments? Or is there-
If it's regarding this resolution specifically, yes.
Comments, not questions.
Yeah, either way.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Frank, I live in the village here. Is that part of the township?
No.
Am I in the right place?
Not in this.
Am I supporting? Am I supporting?
Except that we're
Especially if
paying
not.
for it, but, except for the fire
He can
fund
still
pays for it.
speak.
Sure, certainly.
Okay, yeah, I live in the village here, so I just want to put my 2 cents in here. You read my letter that I sent to you this morning, I'm sure. And we're all in financial constraints, everybody is. The economy's down 7%. We got these things going on internationally. There's a lot of things going on in this world. Ever since
Let's get to the resolution.
I'm going to
please.
get there, sir, please. Ever since 6 months ago, I've been watching my finances more closely. I've been saving my money. I'm very cautious. I don't know what the future holds, and this is before, it's our current things. Things are changing fast. The future is uncertain. This is a terrible time to make any mistakes on your finances, personal finances, but especially on public financing. They're going to go back, the people that we put in charge of our financing are going to go back and look where we did this. It's important that we do this right. I support TLT 100%. Thank you, trustees, for what you do to make this a better place. It's a great place to live, but we really have to be 100% certain with our funding. And as I read this, I don't understand it. I wouldn't do it. If any of my government jobs that I had I brought these to somebody and said, yeah, this is what we want to do. We want to shuffle this money here, shuffle this money there. I'd have a hard time with it. I really like what Don said. I'd like to go through this one at a time and really see what effect it's going to have on our township finances. Support TLT. Love to give them the money. Love Krista. But we got to do this right. And I know you couldn't wait 4 days to do it at the regular meeting because we're going to lose some money, but you know, we got to do this right. We got to go through it line by line, like Don said, so we understand it. And if we don't, then I don't know that it's smart to give money to TLT that puts the township in a financially uncertain position in a financially uncertain time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're here.
There's another one against the wall over to your right.
Sam?
Yeah, I'm Sam Young, and I live in the township, not the village. And I support what this gentleman just said. I don't think it is prudent to deplete the general fund virtually in its entirety. And I'm just wondering, several questions, I guess. I understand that this commitment to pay the $113,000 was in the minutes earlier. I don't follow the minutes. So to me, it seems like this is coming up without any public notice.
Yes.
And that bothers me more than anything else. The problem could be mine.
No.
The other thing, I voted for the tax levy that paid for this building.
Okay, Sam, you're off subject, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna ask you
Well, I
to
don't
bring
think
that to
so.
the next meeting.
I don't think so.
Listen to it.
I think so.
We're talking about moving money from the fire fund.
No, we are not, absolutely, we are not.
That's
No, we are not. That is not fire money, that's ARPA money. It's
Okay.
only
No, no.
sitting.
Fire fund.
It's only sitting.
Chris,
in
do you
the fire
understand that we told the US government that we're
Okay.
giving the ARPA money to the fire fund? Do you want me to get the document for you?
The,
Because we're gonna be audited on that.
fund. You
the bottom-
mince words.
the bottom line-
It's not
The part
mincing
is,
words.
that
You
was-
are breaking,
that was
you are
not
giving evidence
meant
on
to be-
tape.
That was not
You
meant
are
to be
giving evidence on
fire
video
money.
that you intend to use
the
the ARPA
bottom line
money
on
for
my
something that
question
we reported to the public.
is it not possible to make the donation to TLT 30% of our general fund instead of 100%, or some such thing? Lastly, at least for the moment, I would like for you to describe, just for the record of this meeting, where the Welsh Farm is located.
West of the village, Dayton Yellow Springs Road, it's roughly 200 acres to the north.
That's the land that's up for auction. If it's-
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
It's not auction, but for sale. Okay, we good? We'll try and get through some of this. Okay, number one, therefore be resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby direct the Township Fiscal Officer to make the following adjustments. Again, this resolution is basically broken down into two parts. There's a little fuzz in the middle, but the first one is to be able to honor our commitment financially to come to Land Trust. The second part is to how to rearrange some of our financing to basically cover this cost in a slow method. Okay.
I want to say that people, so that you didn't just have to look at what the number of the fund is, I actually wrote the name of the funds next to it. I'm sorry if I complicated it, go ahead.
So the first one is from just the general fund. This is to encumber and appropriate the amount of $92,000 into the appropriation line code 1,195.99. I'll go back, encumber and appropriate, because the $92,000 is not encumbered at this point, and it's not appropriated for any use. Our budget is set for the year 2025. Our budget has been approved by the county auditor. It does not include the use of $92,000 into any appropriation code. Now, 1,195.99 simply is other expenses, and I just picked that one because it was empty. The point is, on that one, and I think it's at the end of the resolution, it says it is for the sole purpose.
It does, it says that.
Oh, yeah, okay, at the very end, it says additionally be resolved that all funds kept in appropriation line 1,195.99 are for the exclusive purpose to fund Miami Township Board of Trustees' commitment to partner with the Constellation Trust to acquire conservation easements, all or part of township parcels known as Welsh Farm. In the eventuality that funds are not utilized for said purpose, funds will be released for any general fund purpose. Item number 2.
Well, we don't need to put item on our own. I mean, I thought you wanted to discuss each item though. I mean, that's what I want to do.
Yes.
Okay, I don't have anything on that, but.
Okay, I have something on that. So in other words, that 1,000, that fund 1,095.90, first of all, where did the one number 92,000 come from? He said, it's just not, we haven't committed
It's
it.
from you.
It was from me.
Yeah.
It was from me.
I'm trying to make you happy.
Oh, yeah.
It's inappropriate.
Keep trying, man.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
You're good.
It's okay.
$92,000, where I got that, it is the only money that we haven't appropriated in that fund, also known as reserve. Gina needs help. we're thinking about getting some hired services to help us with the mess she's been left us from a former officer. We're getting cybersecurity because we had a computer wiped by a former complete. We have all kinds of things. We have legal fees that came from our legal problems we've had. So that 92,000, yeah, it's not appropriated, but I don't know if we're gonna need it. What if the price of copy paper goes up? We're gonna need it. Because I appropriated the money in that budget and I did it as tight as I could.
Yeah.
And it's 92,000, so yes, we don't have it reserved for anything right now. And then the second thing is, so it wants to transfer it to the 1,195.99, which you have established as a line item for a gift for TLT. That's what it is. You want to put the money there, so at the
No,
end.
it's absolutely not a gift, it's
Well,
a commitment. It's to honor a commitment
We
that
just
we have
estab-
made previously based on our commitment to the comprehensive land use plan of Miami Township.
Okay, our commitment to the town.
Let me reread those parts.
No, because you reminded me that I forgot to comment on that.
Oh, okay.
So, my comment on that is, yes, we must follow the comprehensive land use plan. When we passed our plan unit development, we honored the comprehensive plan. When we make decisions in zoning, we honor the comprehensive plan. We talk about solar, does it honor that farmland preservation? Some people think it says, some people think no. But does it mean that because it's in our comprehensive land use plan, we're obligated to fund it?
Yeah.
No, and that was a central.
Yeah.
It says so.
It's to fund it with revenues, we can fund it with revenues, we can,
Okay.
at the expense of the reserve in our general fund?
That's what
Okay.
reserves are for.
And that's what reserves are.
Yeah. As David Newhart said in his email to us this morning, you know, he and Sherry support our contribution to the land use. And he says he understands budgets can be tight. He said sometimes you just gotta pull the belt and go forward with, you know, with your commitment. He said that's what he and Sharon did when they bought the Whitehall Farm.
With their private money?
With their private money.
Not with public money,
Exactly.
right.
He said they had to
With their private money.
tighten their belt, scrimp and save a little bit. He says that's what you do when you've got something that you value.
Yeah, so I agree with you, Chris, because when I appropriated the money for the general fund last few months ago, I was doing some real belt tightening to the point where we renegotiated our health care to make it tighter. So yeah, I know all about that belt tightening.
Gina, so can I ask a question, Gina? When you did the permanent appropriations, what did you base that on? What numbers? Was that a whole bunch of Marilyn's numbers, or were they mine?
It was a mix of the two. I thought Marilyn had looked at yours and amended some of them based off of previous
She amended
years.
a couple.
No, you gave me your first draft and I put it.
But did I not give you appropriations for the entire township budget?
I think that was you.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
All right, item number 2, general fund, encumber and appropriate unbudgeted funds in revenue account 1,892 in the amount of $13,600 into the aforementioned
TLT.
appropriation code 1,195.99.
TLT fund.
This money is money that was reimbursed to us for cemetery maintenance in Clifton. This could be kind of complicated, but I'm going to do my best. Clifton Cemetery is owned by both Miami Township and Greene County, and Miami Township in Greene County and Greene Township in Clark County. Bottom line is we split the costs of the cemetery. The cemetery is run by a cemetery board. Member Don Hollister from Miami Township. Anyway, our agreement with the cemetery board for a bazillion years ago was that we would maintain, we'd mow the grass, we'd dig the graves, et cetera, we would maintain the operation of the Clifton Cemetery, even though it's not a Miami Township Cemetery. And we would be reimbursed for that cost. And that cost is calculated every spring by our road superintendent, who keeps track of all the hours that are being used and the equipment that are being used for the year. And for this past year, excuse me, well, for all times, not all times, we have had a dedicated general fund, not a cemetery fund, not a road and bridge fund, where the work was done, which I don't understand, but we have a dedicated line item in the general fund. It's $1,130,190. It's called other salaries. That is to be used to pay the salaries for the township personnel who work at the Clifton Cemetery. And at the end of the year, that gets calculated up and gets reimbursed. And right now, there's $26,000 that were appropriated into that fund.
Where's that, what number is that?
That is 13190, 1,131.90. 26,000 that were appropriated into it. So far, we've used 3,400
I
of
don't see that on my latest appropriations fund. What date do you have on that?
April
That's not the
4th.
number here.
1,000.
Are you giving a revenue number, Chris, or?
Appropriation number. We're
Okay,
we're flicking back and forth because Marilyn asked me for what that number was.
it doesn't matter.
We're talking about a revenue number.
Oh, revenue number, got you. I'm appropriate. I don't got revenue. I'm cool.
Revenue number, other miscellaneous, non-operating for the general fund, 1,892,000. And I think that's in here somewhere. Okay, yeah, All right, so that's,
So what's the, currently, before moving anything, what's the total in that revenue?
$13,600. $13,419.65. I'm sorry, $13,919.65 because there is a $500 original budget on that.
And we did use that last year.
So the balance, we used 13,000.
Okay.
We didn't use 26,000.
Okay.
So you're saying, wait, are you saying it's 26,000 before moving?
The appropriation was 26,000.
Okay,
I'm
that's-
talking about this miscellaneous revenue. I'm not taking any money that's already been appropriated. This is unappropriated, unencumbered money, $13,600. And moving that into 195.99.
The TLT.
195.99.
Yeah, the TLT fund.
The TLT fund. Questions about that? And we'll get to this, but a little later in the resolution, we will now begin to pay that service, the cemetery mowing. We'll pay it out of whatever the number is that I picked. And then that will get reimbursed after the first of the year, into that line, not back into this general fund line, not anywhere else, only the line that is going to be paid for the rest of this year.
So
This is exactly the kind of detail I need.
and, oh, good. And I don't have if I have things to remember, I don't have a huge problem with taking extra cemetery money that's not being used, and we probably never will, and using it for that purpose. So that 13,600, I guess I'm okay. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to have, I don't have any,
Okay,
I don't have any
gas
object, I don't have any,
Okay, in the gas tax,
although 13,000 in the cemetery.
excuse me, in the gas tax, we can't move within road and bridge or cemetery because there's no lines to move them into. I mean, we could establish them. But in 2021 gas tax, we're talking about, this has to be encumbered by a permanent appropriation. You can't just move within the fund. Like, I think everything else can just be moved within the fund, but this one has to be encumbered and to appropriate into line 2021 110. It's called trustees' salary. 110. You know, maybe I should back up since we're already down into the kind of the meat of the second part. Yeah. Okay. Right now, has been for a few years, sort of probably 15 years. Right now, Gina's and the three of our salaries are paid 100% from the general fund. It's just, the general fund had money, we have requirements, we fulfill the requirements, and we get paid. We have options, according to Ohio Revised Code, for both the elected trustees, board of trustees, and for the fiscal officer. We can change the way we are paid, not based on just one lump sum, but distributed throughout departments that we spend our time working for. Fire department, road and bridge department, and the general fund. The other lines are relatively small. I mean, this would be like 1% for this in the cemetery fund, and 0.5% for this in the zoning fund, and bigger. But anyway, I've got to back up a little bit further. 15 years ago, or before, a little before 15 years ago, Governor Kasich decided that he would reduce the local government funding to the townships in the state of Ohio, and he would eliminate the estate tax money. This is going to get a little complicated again, but up until that moment, our road fund had 2 full-time employees. Let's call it $60,000 a year per employee. Once Governor Kasich made the financial changes, the general fund, the revenues in the general fund obviously reduced, so that means that what we had to spend in that fund was reduced also. Because we had 2 $60,000 employees in the road and bridge department, that took virtually all the road and bridge money, left a little gas tax money, but traditionally we would spend about $25,000 to $30,000 out of the general fund for road maintenance, for blacktop, for chip and seal, for lining, for whatever was necessary to maintain the roads, $25,000 to $30,000 roughly. Once our revenues diminished, we had to quit that. For a couple of years, we basically did no road maintenance. We just didn't have the money. A couple of years later, one of the 2 full-time road employees retired. That freed up $60,000, roughly. We did not hire another person. Sorry about that, Dan. Somebody had to work by himself for a year before he wore out. But anyway, so that freed up that $60,000. That portions of that were used at that point now for road maintenance, for chip seal, blacktop, and whatever. And it also took, it took somewhat of a strain off the general fund, even though we weren't being able to pay off of that, but we wanted to be able to have enough money in the general fund to do things with it. So we went through the mechanisms and we established policy based on 2 Ohio Revised Codes, which are right in front of me somewhere. 2 revised codes that spell out exactly that payroll can be made by determining how much time is spent in this department, how much time is spent in this department, how much time is spent in this department. The basic way we did it 15 years ago was we took roughly 80%, because a lot of our time is spent in working with the fire department, in EMS, doing God knows what all. So we determined 80% of our salary would come from the fire fund. 20% or 10% would come from the road and bridge fund, because we don't do a whole lot, they do pretty much self-sufficient, and 10% from the general fund. There's your 100%. We did that for, gosh, I don't know, 3 or 4 years until the general fund got itself a little more solvent. Don knows because he knows Kasich's reign. The governor after Kasich, also in his infinite wisdom, decided to increase back the local government fund to close, if not exactly the same as it was before, the percentage that we receive from sales tax in the state of Ohio. We also had an uptick in the economy. We had additional revenues coming in higher than they had in the past, so that helped to bump us up a little bit. Okay, so that's where we are. It is my intention that we reestablish that policy. I mean, it's already established, and it never was rescinded. We didn't use it. We just were starting using it. If you'll notice on your appropriation sheet that both the gas tax has a line for salaries for the trustees and salaries for the fiscal officer. Those are the lines that have been there forever. Those were the ones that we used in the past to pay those percentages. You'll notice in the line for the fire fund, there's a line for salaries for trustees. There's a line for salary for a fiscal officer. Of course, there's nothing in it for the moment, but those were used at that time to help bolster back the general fund, which was tight.
So that explains in part the next point.
Wait,
It pretty much explained the rest of the resolution, but just because.
Go ahead and comment on it.
Then
Because I have some-
each of those, we need to think of, okay, making that shift, how does
What
it
did we decide
impact
we're
other?
making that shift? This is the first I've heard from you. You said you'd like to make a shift back to that?
I don't know what that, I'm not sure what that.
You said you'd like to make a shift back for the different departments to be sharing the cost of
Correct.
trustees, but you never, that's the first here, first, you said it for the first time to my ears, and now you say, okay, so when we make that shift back, I'm like,
So what I'm
I'd
What
like
I'm
to-
saying
I'd like
is
to
we
come-
need to look at, I need to look at, for instance, encumber and appropriate 150,000.
That's entirely separate. Donna, I'm sorry. It's just
Okay.
that had to be under the encumbered line because it couldn't be moved. That's unencumbered funds in the 2281 that would go into 2281 salaries. That's the line that we established to use for our trustees. That was our line that we established to kind of have as a reserve, as a benchmark for where we can go with purchasing new equipment in the future. But, you know, the higher that is at the end of every year, that's what we have to commit to other projects. I'm sorry, that has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about today. It's just because because we were talking about, because I was talking about amending permanent appropriations.
By putting in-
And we never did it before.
Exactly what I need to understand.
But why-
because my mind is not wrapped around the line items the way yours are. And so, thank you.
So,
And if we make, I'm sorry, Marilyn, go ahead.
no, you can just finish before I respond.
Roughly, if we make these changes, or when we make these changes, we will be relieving the general fund of obligations payments for salaries of approximately $50,000 a year,
Giving them to me?
okay? Now, if our original idea was that ARPA funds would go into the general fund before we got, cold feet and we're worried about the treasury taking it back, and we had that money in the general fund, and we were fortunate enough to have the Welch farm be sold and have some conservation easements on it, we would use that money for that. This is a method of making that whole again.
And I'm simply picking at each line
Okay.
because we have to be
And I would like to say
responsible.
that right now, when I read, Professor Internet legal stuff, it says typically a general fund, that's what it's for the administration, that's typical. But you can, and it says you can spread it around to other funds based on percentage. Our general fund is doing just fine right now, paying our administrators. Should we go back to sharing the cost? And the one thing I have is that I want to make sure that's done legally. Like, you just have to say, hey, I spent 80% of my time at the fire station, which I don't think we do, but do we have to, I don't know the legal, I don't want to do it, but if we did, I don't know the legal way of saying, listen, I'm going to pay 80% of my salary out of the fire fund because I spend 80% of my time. Do you know the legal route? Are we allowed to just declare that?
Yes, we are allowed to just declare that.
We're just allowed to declare, that's how I spend my time.
That's how we operated for about 4 years.
And
Yeah,
in
and
those 4 years,
but-
did auditors,
Never.
Are you
Never.
sure?
Yes, I am very sure.
Okay, well, that's something I would like an attorney to look over.
I asked our prosecuting attorney, and he said that we were, it's obviously
Currently,
legal.
the
What we
prosecutor,
had
or back then?
questions.
Currently or back then?
Currently.
Oh,
And he said that, what we're just dealing with a policy issue. We're not dealing with legal issues. The legal.
A policy. So we would have to-
The legality is already
We would have to
established
create a
by
policy.
the Ohio. No, we have a policy.
Okay.
We're not creating it.
Okay.
This policy has been on the books since 1990, whatever.
Books or?
Yeah, books.
Okay, so this is new to me, that we might want to move into an era again where the general fund doesn't pay all of our the elected official salaries. We start parsing it out to different departments. That's something we have to look at. And this is the first time I'm hearing for the first time. I mean, I knew it happened in the past. I never knew what, but
Well, when we made the decision, because we had cold feet,
no, because it wasn't really legal.
to not put the ARPA funds into the general fund, but to hide them in the fire fund.
We're hiding them?
Yeah, we're hiding them.
No, we're not hiding them. I, Marilyn Moyer,
We're
reported,
parking them.
I, Marilyn Moyer, reported to,
We're parking them in the fire fund.
parking them for what? Why are we parking them?
So then they can, so they can just be part of the new process of, they can be the 80% for contribution for the salaries of us.
So that we can.
So we can recoup money into the general
So that we
fund.
can recoup the money we gave to TLT.
Correct.
I want to state to the US Treasury, if you ever look at this video, when I reported to you that we're using it to, and I already reported to you that COVID hit all of us hard. Coming out of COVID, we had wage inflation. We had wage inflation, and we also had first responder shortages. And the reason I gave for the ARPA money that I just reported, our final report, they said, make sure you've got a good reason why you're going to do this. And I said, that's the reason. I want to fortify the fire department because of the hit we took because of COVID. I did not hide money in the fire department. I did not hide money in the fire department so that we could reimburse ourselves for what we did someplace else.
All right, there's a little confusion. This ARPA money, it's not even in the fire department yet.
It is.
No, it's not.
Yes, we did. We transferred it.
It says it's still in the,
Where's your fund balance sheet? It's not on there. It says American Rescue Plan, 0.
ooh, it's gone. Okay.
We had to do that by December. We had to do that by December 30th.
That money went into the general account of the fire department. It can be used for any purpose. It is not earmarked for this resolution.
Whoa. Okay, yeah, that's true. That's.
All right, can we move on, please?
Actually, can I talk?
Absolutely, sure.
About mine? I would highly recommend also that an attorney evaluate that process.
The attorney has
from the-
evaluated it.
In writing to all.
No, we don't do things in writing.
Evaluate
anymore.
which process.
The process
Seriously,
where to distribute your salary.
That's a policy issue.
According to the Ohio Township Handbook, under Township Offices Employees in the Section 2, they do have limited requirements of how and when you are supposed to claim the hours and time that you spend within each department.
Oh.
Now, I'm new at this, and I can't guarantee that this is 100% accurate, but I definitely said it's absolutely worth that every trustee feels comfortable legally moving forward in any decision making that you make.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
The Ohio Revised Code, on both of the township and the fiscal officer, is very short, and pretty explicitly, it just says, time utilized by the officer per department. It does not have any qualifications, restrictions. I mean, that is exactly.
So we get to just state that we did.
Exactly.
That we spend 80% of our time
Yeah.
with the fire department managing you guys?
And our county prosecutor believes that's legal, and that all we're discussing is the in-place policy. We're not going to discuss changing the policy. We're just discussing how to fund the
We're
policy.
just gonna predicate the next move on changing it.
All right, can we go to adjustments to the corporations?
Yes.
Okay, number one is begin to make all normal payments previously drawn from line code 13190. That's the salaries in the general fund for the cemetery maintenance.
No, that's the money for the zoning inspector, I do believe.
Double check. Another salary is 13190.
Well, no, 130, 190.
Yeah, 13190, other salary.
That's Brian's salary. That line 130, 190, 211, 213, that's all Brian, our zoning inspector. To the penny of what he, if he uses maximum 20 hours, that's to the penny what he would do. So maybe, I was surprised when you did that, but maybe you didn't know. That takes the zoning inspector's salary out of the general fund and into the road and bridge fund. Oh, that's why you did that. I wonder why you did that. You were mistaken, you thought it was the cemetery people, but that's Brian's salary.
All right, what we're talking about then is 410,190, which is substantially less, but it's money.
110, 190.
410,
410, 190.
410,190.
$8,000, so change that 25,000 to 8.
Yeah.
Change that 25,000 number 2 to 8,000, and change that number to 130. No. 1,410, 190.
Right. And then make those subsequent payments for that work to 2031, 331.90. And, okay, we're gonna change this one to 8. Whoa, what?
I didn't know what you changed there. To the TLT fund, right?
No.
No.
2031 is gas tax, 331.90 is salaries, other salaries.
Okay.
Okay, so then we're gonna change number 2 from 22 to 8. Yes.
That's okay, because though you said you wanted 113,000, you actually put 130,000 into that TLT
Yeah.
fund.
Little extra in there. Okay, chapter salaries appropriation, that's the
What?
TLT
What, a
fund.
little extra? Oh.
3, commencing with the end, here's our fun time. Commencing with the end of pay period, okay, that, if you add those up, as Marilyn just said, what is it now with the 8 as opposed to 22?
It's 14,000 less.
So that's 120, 116.
Okay, so that puts 116,000 available to honor our commitment of 113,000 to the Tecumseh Land Trust. Okay, now, number 3, and this is to move around to pay the different salaries, but commencing with the end of the pay period, April 30th, 2025, please draw the trustee salaries from the following appropriation codes. 10% from code 1,110, which is the normal salaries from the general fund. 10% from appropriation code 2021, 110, that's gas tax salaries for trustees. And 80% from appropriation line code 2021, 110, 111, salaries trustees.
In short, starting
From the
April.
fire fund.
In short, starting April 30th, we would take our salaries, 10% from general, 10 from gasoline fund, and 80% from the fire fund.
Right.
And how much,
And then
80% from the fire fund.
how much unappropriated money is there in the fire fund now?
300,000 or 400,000.
in both funds together.
Okay,
That's 300,000
which is-
reserves on $1.5. That's 300,000 reserves on a $1.5 million budget.
Can I also say, that's money that we would help pay for a capital expense like a fire truck or ambulance or something, long-term.
that's also money that has $130,000, $135,000, whatever it is, that was recently added, that was never considered to
Why
be
was it
there.
added?
Well, because we changed our mind for the treasury, and instead of putting it in the gas
Because we put the
fund.
ARPA money there.
Right.
Because we told the federal government we were going to spend it on fire and rescue personnel.
And we told them that to make them happy.
What? I told them that because I took it out of the office.
Whoa, Chris, come on, man.
We're on the floor now.
Commencing with the end of pay period April 30th, draw fiscal officer salary from the following appropriation code, 20% from appropriation code salary fiscal officer, that's the general fund, and 80% from appropriation code 2191 salary.
Chris, you have a firefighter that's asking to be heard.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So that 80% that you're taking from the fire fund to fund the salaries of the four of you, what would that come to you annually?
50 minus 20, 40,000.
40,000?
You sit down.
So you'd be taking 40,000 out of the fire fund that we could use for other things?
Absolutely not. It was never there to begin with. That was only there as, to put as a safe place, so we would not have that drawn back from the Treasury Department.
No, we told the Treasury Department that we had revenue loss during COVID, that we fell on hard times, that there was wage inflation, and there was a shortage of first responders. We didn't tell them that to make it happy, to wait for them to look away so we could take it back. How dare you say that on camera? I want to protect you from that. Seriously, you better watch what you say on camera if that's what you're thinking.
Well, then don't you feel bad that, you demanded $10,000 of that ARPA fund to pay for your YSDC committee?
Yes. Before I remembered this,
And that was not legitimate.
it was not legitimate,
Oh, okay.
And it didn't happen.
and it didn't happen.
Well, it didn't happen, a lot of things don't happen, but
And it wouldn't have
that's what you
happened, it
wanted.
wouldn't have happened because we reversed it. Because I sat down with the Treasury
But
and
the board committed to it.
They
We
did.
moved to commit to give you $10,000. Same way we moved to commit
we did.
Michelle.
Well, I actually gave the idea because the broadband was going to happen. It's like, why is this
Chuck
just
said the
takes
motion.
that? What if that 10,000 wasn't there? I was wrong,
Okay.
and I didn't fully understand it.
All right.
Because people at conferences were saying, you know what they do, it's kind of, it's, I'm not even sure it's illegal, it's just really, probably get you audited. And then if they get audited, there's people all along saying things on video, and knowing all I need is a video.
Okay. Number 3 is commencing with the end of pay period
Chuck, did
April
you say
30th.
something?
No, I thought you was asking the question.
Nope. Draw fiscal officer salary from the following appropriation codes, 20% from general fund, 80% from fire. Next, transfer 23,000
Hold on,
from,
we didn't talk about that one. So in other words, fiscal officer, altogether maybe with the 24,000, maybe make with everything 28, so $28,000 a year, 80% of that from the fire fund, so that's, I don't know, another 20,000, let's be rough. And so it was 50,000 from the trustees and 20,000 from the fiscal, so that's 70,000.
no, that's total. That's
Four.
ours and hers.
Oh, the 50 was total,
Mhm.
okay. Wait, 16, 32, 48, and 48 plus yours is 48, 58, 68, 74, so 80% of 74. 50, okay.
Transfer 23,000 from 2191 salaries to 2191 110 111 salaries of the trustees. That's how
Okay,
that-
hold on,
that's how that is funded
That is
to the fire department.
transfer within a fund, in the fire fund transfer from the firemen's salaries,
Mhm.
transfer 23 additional dollars
Mhm.
into the trustee salaries.
Correct.
From the fire fund, along with this 50,000, transfer 23,000 from the firemen's salaries into the trustee salaries. So that's 70, so that's 70.
money from the ARPA fund.
No, it's not, because.
Wait, could be. I mean, you could take that 130,000 and put it in salaries tomorrow. You want to transfer
Well,
that?
it's money from that
You
fund.
want to transfer that
It's
to the
money from that
salaries?
fund, but it's not from the ARPA fund, because as I reported to the federal government, we have put it in there to augment first responders. I'm not a first responder.
All right, let's, at the end of this, let's make the motion to transfer that money into the salaries. So you can augment.
No, we could,
Okay.
Jesus, William and Mary, or?
Can we?
What? I know,
The
I'm
next
just
one is
repeating what you just said to me.
transfer 14,000 from fire, 2191 salaries to salaries fiscal officer, which apparently that's low.
Say what?
Transfer 14,000 from fire salaries to fire salary fiscal
Oh,
officer.
so there's another.
Is 14,000 too low for that?
Is the ARPA money encumbered?
Is the,
You said, is that more than Gina's gonna make for the rest of the year?
Set
Yeah.
Is that 20, is that
well,
80%
we
of
moved it all last year, so
2024?
No.
I'm not quite clear how that works.
Oh, that's just for the rest of the year. That's for the
Yeah,
7 months.
yeah.
That's not.
So there's another 14,000 out of the fire fund, so that's 97,000 out of the fire fund.
The ARPA fund, the ARPA money.
It's not the ARPA money.
It
It's
is
not the
ARPA
ARPA money, because we can't use ARPA money for trustee salaries. We can only use them for first responders.
So then that's where,
And
that's where it's going. You're gonna make the motion to move this ARPA money.
You're not telling me what to do.
Well, you want to have this codified. I'll make the motion.
I don't know if any of
Motion
this
to-
is happening, so.
What fund is did the ARPA funds go into? What line? What appropriation line?
Salaries, I believe.
I have to look, I can't, it was at the end of last year, I can't remember whatever you voted on, that's what I put it in, I can't remember what it is.
Or maybe we put it into our reserves.
Yeah, I think that's what we did. I think it's in reserves. Mark has a question.
All right, well, we can move it out of the reserves into the salaries.
Into whose salaries?
Fire fund.
Firefighter salaries?
Sure.
And then we're gonna move firefighter salaries into trustee salaries?
Mm-hmm.
Mark has a question.
We did that for 5 years and never got
Caught?
any question. No caught, Mark.
Is the ARPA fund a grant?
Yes.
Is the ARPA fund, it's an award from
Typically.
the federal government.
It's a grant.
They don't call it that, they call it the,
The only reason,
It's
the only reason
stimulus
I'm asking is typically with a grant, in the nonprofits that I've worked with, grant funds have to be encumbered, and you have to account for what you're spending out of those encumbered funds. And my question is this encumbered, or should it have been?
No. It's obligated, not encumbered.
yeah, that's.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
We obligated it.
It will be encumbered by the end of this year. Thank you, we're safe, Gina. If we haven't encumbered it yet, we're safe. The rules were, you have to have it obligated by December 31st. That means you have to know what you're spending on it. If you're doing it internally, you have to have identified, like the pay stubs, you were gonna. I did that. If it were going to be outside of that, obligated means you already got a contract with the guy who's gonna mow next spring or something. You know, what I mean is that obligated means you already have set in motion and you have proof of what you're going to.
And you said that's what I'm spending the money on?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
which means
obligated.
those funds will be encumbered.
And then they have to be encumbered and spent by next December. 2026, 2025.
So I'm, the
But no,
point, the long way around, and the point that I'm making is eventually you have to account for what that money was spent for.
Oh, yes. I mean,
Actually, we would be on call if they came in and asked, but that is, we don't have a
Yeah.
process the way that
yeah.
No, I
a
understand.
narrow grant would.
They said, put it in your file cabinet, put a note on it, write it on paper, so if they come in and say, excuse me, do you have proof of what you spent that for? Oh, yeah, I can get it for you right here. Which is why I chickened out, I shouldn't say that, when we talked to the Treasury, and I realized if we put it in our general fund, we'd probably have a little red flag and say, you know, audit me.
I've already read the additional be resolved, so I'm not going to do that again. Are there any other questions or comments
Yeah,
regarding this resolution?
Can I ask it just a
Yes, ma'am.
clarifying question, just to make sure that I understand where the, kind of the disagreements are happening over this text, which is that the ARPA funds have been obligated to the fire fund officially on the record resolved December 23rd.
Mm-hmm.
So that money specifically has to be spent on the fire fund.
Correct.
and salaries.
specifically on first responders.
Yes, Fund
Not-
2191.
However,
Yeah.
well, I'm making that because if we pay trustees out of the fire fund, it can't be used for that.
I guess what I'm asking is, what is the difference? Because there doesn't seem to be clarity. What is the, how do you have to prove to the federal government that, that you, the money you are, this resolution would take out of, in part out of Fund 2191 to pay for salaries, to make up the difference in the general fund, is what I'm understanding is what the purpose of that is. Is there, what is the legality of that? It doesn't sound like there's an agreement on whether it's legal or not.
Certainly. I didn't bring it with me, I'm sorry, but I have both Ohio revised codes that have been reviewed
I don't
by
mean
the
that.
attorney that says they're legal to, in order to
Right.
do that.
I don't mean that, I think that's easily checked. I mean, the appearance of, I guess maybe the ethicality, the appearance of moving money into a fund for a specific purpose, which is to say salaries for our firefighters. I believe that's the fund.
Okay, we can clear that up.
Yeah.
We certainly can clear that up. I don't know where that money is. Gina, do you know where that money is?
I believe it's in the fire
ARPA?
The
fund.
ARPA, I have,
I believe it's in the fire fund unencumbered.
Okay, let's take that money, put it into 2281, which is our salaries line. It's also the money that we're hoping to keep without spending too far down, so we can use it for good purposes.
What purpose?
New fire truck.
Oh, I thought it was up the money.
So if it's
So it will
encumbered-
it'll be encumbered into a salary line specifically for fire and EMS personnel.
And it's not being, then in that case, it's not being used for Tecumseh interest. And any money that you pull out of the fire fund for your salaries and Gina's salaries, according to ORC, you can do that.
Yep.
But it, you know, so that you are not, and my understanding, and I apologize for this, I've just been trying to understand the overall purpose of the document, because it sounds like the purpose of pulling you all's salaries out of the fire fund is to
Increase the
replenish the
balance.
general fund
Yeah,
of the
Money we
deficit
just-
that would be there.
the money that we just reappropriated.
And
we
there's
do.
just a disagreement on whether or not it's ethical and or legal. So the money,
Not for me.
sure, well, no, I know, you have an opinion, she has an opinion, and those opinions are valid.
Well, honestly, since it's all funds, and it's, I don't know, I'm not a lawyer, you probably, even though that's what we're doing, you probably legally say, well, yeah, we paid firefighters, and we paid them with it, and then there's money. I don't know. I don't know how it would come down. I think we might get away with it. It might be legal, it might be, the ARPA fund does have the words in here, they sent it to me. The appearance, what's the words? The appearance of, what's the word? Avoid this, or even the appearance of, somebody help me, what was it? Impropriety.
That's why we should put it into 2281 salaries, fire department, EMS department.
that's what we should put one
2281.
in the ARPA money, is that what?
How would that change things?
Because it would be used only for that,
Okay,
not for
so yeah.
drawing percentages of salaries for the four of us, from anything to do with that money that was put in there. 2281 says fire and rescue, ambulance and EMS service. So if it goes into 2281, 23190, other salaries, then it will be there available for the unfortunate circumstance that we diminish all our salaries in 2191 before the end of the year, to the point where we don't have
It has to
them.
be-
We will then start paying them out of 239.
ARPA funds need to be spent by December, by Christmas. Excuse me, December 31st.
We can start paying, if we put the money in there, we'll just start paying out of 2281.
So
Start paying fire specifically, not the salary part.
Yeah. Well, it has to be the salary part.
Salary part of 2191.
Oh, got it. We have a question over here.
I'm just curious how each of you feel about, or if each of you are open to having representation or a lawyer look at this, and if not, why?
They already have.
Who?
Brian Grabenauer.
Gravender told me he can't represent, and
That's because there's no legal question. This is a policy question. It's an established policy. It's not a legal question.
Actually, I talked to.
So does that no, you wouldn't be open to having somebody, an
We already
independent
did.
person look at it?
I already did, I should say.
There's no we.
There is we.
No, there's no we. There's a you, sir. You had someone look at it.
Yeah.
Marilyn had someone look at it. That's a we.
No, I didn't.
feel comfortable in information you were providing.
He wouldn't look at it, and he said unless the whole board, Gravender wouldn't help me look at it legally, at the prosecutor's office. He said unless it's a whole board. He said, Marilyn, I don't work just for you, I work for the whole board. Go ask them if they're open to it. I sent out an email, I asked, neither one responded. I sent out another email, hey, you know, Brian said he'll look this over if we all agree, he can't just work for me. I didn't get a response. I said out a third time, Brian said he'd look this over. Would you guys want to get this? No, I'm lying. I think I only sent it out twice and didn't get a response.
He told me he wouldn't respond to our request because it's not a legal question, because it's
Okay.
already legal.
I talked to our private attorney. She said, ooh, wow, this is, I wouldn't, could Chris, she said, could Chris be talked into having somebody look this over? And I'm like, well, I would hope so, but I don't know. And I said, I could talk Don. I mean, Don maybe doesn't want to have somebody look this, maybe does want to. I mean, with you guys in the room, I have power.
Don,
Imagine
do
this
you?
conversation if you weren't in the room.
Yeah, you wouldn't
How
have
does
any.
Dawn feel about it?
Oh, you're fortunate.
Three of you.
Oh, that's
Oh, man, come on. She's a trustee. We voted for her.
Absolutely.
Yeah, treat her with respect, sir.
Absolutely.
Please,
She
publicly.
has her power because you're here.
Yes, I have the power because they're
Because we
here.
voted for her.
Because
Yeah.
if they weren't
For
here,
Don and I.
We voted for her.
You have, we have been through,
Yeah, why not just
we've
have an
been
attorney
through
look
all
at
the
it?
points.
Let's make
We've
it,
made some changes.
let's make a compromise.
have an attorney look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's make a compromise. Forget about payroll in May. We'll get that some other time. I will agree, you can either move or however you want to do it, to have this reviewed legally.
I'm all ears.
I was
Well,
about to,
that's a compromise,
I was about to-
hold
I'm
on.
not-
Your
the
compromise
compromise-
is that we can have it looked at legally? That's a compromise? That should
No,
be
Yeah.
first
As
step.
opposed to,
Thank you.
as opposed
It's
to
a good
adopting a
idea.
resolution.
As opposed to adopting it without having it looked at by a lawyer.
Say yes, do it and get it done.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
I
certify
believe your
so you don't feel
suggestion
like
is that
it's a backlash
we
on it.
bring this, we continue this to our next meeting.
No, we'll
Yes.
end this meeting. There's no continuation of a special meeting.
Okay, but I mean, it's a consideration of this framework.
After Maryland has had it reviewed,
After Maryland has had it reviewed?
who do you want me to?
Okay, sure, I'll do it.
To review it.
I thought we were having it reviewed. Okay.
One person, I mean, we, all
Okay.
three don't have to walk down to somebody's office.
We could.
Yeah, come on.
Okay,
Talking to
so,
her like that.
I support not acting today and
wait,
continuing
no,
discussion.
not acting on adopting this today.
Right.
not adopting this today. And
If you-
that I will bring it up at our meeting Monday night.
Whoa, bring it up, and then what happens then? You guys, nobody's here, you guys vote to pass it, and it's done?
Well, I'm assuming that we'll do all sorts of things between now and Monday.
Like?
Well, like rewrite it. We've made some changes. Welsh spelled differently.
Well,
And
And a lawyer
And
will
get-
vet it?
Get legal opinion.
And then, okay, we're missing a central question.
Okay.
Even if we could get a lawyer to massage this the way we want it, do we want to, in this position we're in, do we want to give Tecumseh Land Trust $113,000?
And then we can vote yes
We
or
haven't
no.
committed to it, that's what
We
we've
have committed
established
to it
in the,
privately.
we have not committed to it. Show me your, you said
Chuck said we
resolution.
committed to it.
Chuck, did you?
Change
sorry.
resolution to motion.
I have
Marilyn,
another question.
I could still vote against it on Monday just because.
Yeah, but I've been down that road. Here, Lucy, hold the football.
Okay.
I have a question. Go ahead, please.
I actually have a couple of things. First, I'm not an attorney, I can't comment on all the legalities. But second, as a business manager with a fairly extensive accounting background, I don't generally like all this shifting of money from one fund to another. It gives people an incorrect impression. That's just a statement of mine. Second question is, Chris, you made the statement that this commitment is made, it's a done deal, earlier in the meeting.
Yeah.
My understanding is that that commitment was in minutes from an earlier thing. My question is, was Tecumseh Land Trust aware at the time of that commitment that it was subject to a contingency of being passed in a resolution?
No.
If there is a contingency, then a commitment has not yet been made.
No contingency. It was done by motion.
Well, then what's this all about if there's no contingency? Don't you have to pass a resolution to give them that money?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Then that's the contingency. That, okay, we're going to give you this money, but you have to understand that it needs approval from a resolution.
Well,
So what I'm saying is there's not a contingent, there's not a commitment until this resolution is made and passed.
No, there's a commitment.
well, my understanding was after
There was a
this-
policy commitment.
Gina?
I'm not going to comment on it further. I think that there is not a commitment until this resolution is passed. And at this point in time, I would oppose it, largely on the basis that, again, as a business manager, I think every organization needs a reserve for emergencies. And this is depleting the reserve to an extent that I wouldn't do it. And
It's also adding to the reserve about $50,000 a year, Sam. Whether you like that it has to go from this fund to this fund, to be appropriated from this fund to this fund, the bottom line is it will replenish the general fund available capital by approximately $50,000 a year.
I don't doubt that.
How else do you want me to do it?
But the township
I can't write a
would
check.
still have that much less money in its coffers one place or another.
How do you feel?
I don't want to have a public argument with you, Chris, and I'm not feeling hostile. I just am trying to analyze this from the position of a businessman. Any organization needs to keep a reserve.
Thank you.
But if we follow our comprehensive plan-
And I think we are depleting the reserve, whatever reserve that we have.
It will be renewed. If we follow our comprehensive plan,
What about our bylaws as a
Well,
and
board
commit
that says
by
we're
motion-
responsible for our
That may be, but I don't yet
and
understand
commit by
how.
motion
Okay,
to participate with Tecumseh Land Trust.
I'm sorry, Gina?
Thank you.
Jada had something to say.
Well, I just, to clarify, I don't know about the contingency part, but isn't it, with what we passed in whatever October, what changed was that what you allocated was ARPA money and then realized you couldn't use ARPA
Yeah,
money. Isn't that
the
what
commitment was
changed?
for ARPA money. The commitment we made was for the award money. That's the commitment.
And then realized you couldn't
And then
do that.
And then we realized we couldn't do it.
Right.
So
In
That's
fact,
why we're
it was
here.
quoted by Chris in August that December 31st was drop dead date. After that time, the funds would be returned to our general and it would be done. That's a direct quote. It's confusing as to why are we, it's confusing as to why we're here. Because when we looked at that, when in August, when he looked at the ARPA money, he said, drop dead date,
But we-
December 31st. After that, it's a done deal. We shouldn't even be here now.
No, we kept it open. If the
No,
Wells
we
Farm hadn't
did,
been
that's the
sold,
problem.
kept it
We
open.
didn't keep it. The thing is, Chris, when you think something in your head, you think we did it.
Yeah.
That's the problem I've had for 3 years. When you think something in your head, you think we did it.
Mhm.
That's what I've experienced.
Chris, I'd like to say our commitment to the TLC is, in many ways, the way that zoning is set up and what have you, it does protect the township and protects that sprawl from happening. And so it does. And so say that land, it does, the way you have it zoned, which is good, and we all support that, 300-foot frontage, minimal acreage, what have you. That land out there, you couldn't extend the utilities out there. If you wanted, the way the zoning is, you'd have to change the zoning law for them to build massively out there. That's number one, okay? So understand, we're already doing
Just have
that.
to be annexed into the village.
But the village doesn't have the ability to extend its utilities out to
If they're gonna
that.
get 300 home sites, they probably wouldn't make that commitment. I'm not gonna talk.
Okay, so you're just assuming that. Okay,
Or the
the other
developer
part,
might put the $1 million
the other
in to have a
question,
lift station.
does this money make a difference for the TLC, whether they're gonna be able to save that land or not?
Michelle, would you like to answer that?
It does. We thought this was a commitment, and so we were basing our fundraising with this.
Is there a time frame that has to be, that you can't still raise that publicly?
I mean, we can, but because we met the goal that we had established, we were prepared to enter into contracts with willing buyers. And I was not aware of this problem with the money, so I would have been in breach of contract.
Yeah, and I'm sorry we put you in that position.
So now that you're seeing this, there's no way for the TLC to let the community make up that difference?
There's
Yes.
a way. Would you like to give?
Sure.
Okay. We
But
take
I
your
don't think we
donation.
should be taking it all from the,
I have no opinion on
Yes.
this matter here. I'm here to answer a question like that. So I was informed that there was a commitment. I was basing our fundraising on that commitment, and I was prepared to enter into contracts with willing buyers. So at
So
this
if-
point, I cannot until this gets cleared up. Or we raise the money from someplace else. So I'll be happy to take your donation.
Gina has a question.
Well, I just want to say, that it does give me fairly, I'm also a longtime supporter of TLT and TLT's mission, but as some of the other points have been made here, draining all this certainly gives me great reservation. And I did wonder if you're going to table it for another time, like Sam had made some suggestions about, not appropriating that amount or still helping in ways that we can't, but depleting all our reserves certainly makes me nervous.
And I also was thinking about you. Gina's new. She came into a situation that was not ideal. We're struggling. I'm wondering about two things. One is when she looks at all this that has to be done, every time she pays somebody, I feel like it's a burden. It seems like a burden on a brand new person. But more importantly, when next year, if this were to go through, next year when we go through to appropriate, to redo our budgets, to do our appropriations, I'm gonna look at a fund and say, oh, we did pretty good. Oh, well, I can fix this, fix it. Oh, but that went there. Oh, let me see, how much we get from there, we got there. Did we do well? I don't know, because this money came from there. Oh, but then we took that money, we put that over there. And I can't, this year, when I looked at funds, I said, okay, here's the general fund. And I looked at it and I saw how we do. Ooh, we didn't spend all that, we spent some of that. Next year, I'm going to say, it's going to be a lot harder, if not impossible, to say how well did this fund perform. I don't know because it's coming from different places. I'm just saying that this will complicate our job when we go to.
I'll walk you through it.
Second, I got one more thing to say. If there were to be a compromise in which the amount was lower, so that it could be handled simply by cutting our reserves and not having to fill in those reserves, that would maintain the integrity of our appropriations. If we could get the money, oh God, I hate to even say it, because part of me knows me, I feel for Michelle, and I like land preservation. Part of me says, this should never be done, I don't want to give them a red cent, but if we can manage it so it's a simple matter, we took some reserves and donated, then we wouldn't have to do all this. Then we could stay on our track of improving our budgeting.
Okay, we are off the subject. Is there anything else that's on the subject before?
Yes, I would like to continue this discussion
I want to be
on
clear.
Monday.
We can continue, we're not continuing the meeting.
Right, not continue this meeting.
I want to be
And
clear.
I will be looking at legal and fiscal considerations before that.
I would make a motion that we have Jen Huber, our private attorney, redo it.
No, it needs to be done by a county prosecutor because it has to do with, with county funds. I don't think she's going to look at it the same way he would.
We can have them both look at it, see what we compare their opinions.
You've already spent a fortune on her. Anything else before the board?
I want to have clarity. I too many times say, well, let's kick it down the road, and then the next meeting it's gone. I would like, okay, I'd like to make a motion that we have both our county attorney and our private attorney look at this.
I'll second that motion.
Done deal. So did I.
Yes, I vote.
The vote is actually,
I vote yes.
I vote yes. For the record, are you abstaining?
No, I said yes.
Yes, okay.
Oh.
And
And then I would like to, people to look for some kind of compromise. I mean, I'm not asking everybody to go out and look for a compromise. I'm putting out in Yellow Springs fashion to the universe that maybe there's a way to do something that could be more healing than this process. And there's a third thing is, I would like to make a motion. You have, obviously, in order to go to your people, your contracts, you need to know as soon as possible. Is there a number of days where it'd feel comfortable? I mean, I would like to comfortably say we'll hear it again Monday, but we're not going to vote Monday. I would like to entertain would that?
I think you.
we're
I'm
likely
not
to
sure
vote
that's your
Monday.
decision, Marilyn.
No, I was going to make a motion.
To not vote?
To not vote to discuss Monday, but not vote Monday. Maybe.
I'm not going to support that.
I'm not either.
So, you guys both, in the future, I'm going to try to make a policy where the village, when they're making a really huge decision and somebody brings it, they can't make that huge decision that night. It has to come back at least 2 times.
That's the
We,
village.
we don't have
They
that
operate
policy,
on entirely different rules.
but we have the ability to make that policy. Otherwise, Krista McGraw couldn't come in here asking for $113,000 and have some decide in 15 minutes. So that it's part of the problem. We absolutely have the right to make that policy. But I guess that I'm reading the room, and I don't think we're going to do that today. So what you're saying is you're not committing to not making this event, to not voting this on Monday. I'm going to ask Michelle, make a huge difference for you if we kicked it one more week meeting?
I'm really not gonna.
You're not going to comment?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you all have
yeah,
to
that's
do what you
unfair.
have to do.
That's unfair.
Anything else?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
For what?
I'll make a motion that we at least take 2 meeting cycles to decide this. We don't vote Monday. Are you taking minutes? Or you can watch? I mean, on my motion.
I haven't heard it yet.
That we continue, no, we don't continue this meeting. We continue discussion on Monday, but we don't vote Monday. We take at least 1 more meeting. Can I get a second?
Fair enough.
No.
No second? Okay.
Anything else before the
I
board?
just wanted to ask that so we could get that on record.
Did I entertain a motion to adjourn?
I so moved.
Thank you. We are adjourned by acclamation. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.